So you might not have thought this, but millennials could actually become the richest generation ever. And of course, it's thanks to their parents. A new study out showing that millennials are set to inherit $68 trillion from their parents by the year 2020, and this is right up your alley, Chris. This kind of thing. But the millennials get a bad rap, and then wonder if what they'll do with the money. Maybe people will start asking. But this is something else. It's already, by the way, a lot. There's 618,000 millennial millionaires apparently out there, according to these numbers. So
yeah, this is. I mean, we're about to go through one of the largest wealth transfers in history.
Yeah.
And if these millennials don't have a game plan and don't understand how to handle it,
you see a business opportunity for yourself.
This is going to be a very short transfer window, meaning that the opportunity to go out and invest in things they don't understand, not setting up their next generation. See, this is the mindset. Legacies don't happen by accident. If you look at the Vanderbilts, right, the Marriotts, the Hiltons, it took one person to set it up, but it can take one to make it fall. So this mindset of helping them to understand how to deal with money, setting it aside, using estate plan, using trust, they have to keep learning.
It is a different environment, and what the study compared it to was the 80s when there was a quote-unquote millionaire boom. And to Chris's point, it's because of all the inheritance coming on top of that. So there's already a bunch, for all the bad rap, there's already a bunch of millennials with a lot of money. They made it in all kinds of different ways. I said 600,000 plus millionaires, but now they're going to get all this money from
good for them. That's great. Wonderful. And I want to see them get the money. I don't want to see Uncle Sam get the money.
Well, that's
so
the
all
point,
the worries to kill the death tax once and for all. No taxation without respiration, as Steve Forbes says. Let's get rid of the death tax so these people can get their money and either invest it in new companies, give it away as philanthropy, do whatever they want with it. They'll do a much better job with that money than will Uncle Sam.
Quite the contrast, right? For these conversations we have about millennials wanting, being supportive of leftist economic policies, or the like. Your point is maybe they shouldn't be. But go ahead.
To Chris's point, it's long been understood in sociology circles that the difference between being poor and poverty is the mindset about time. And if you are focused on this week, or this month, or even just this year, you are likely to be in a poverty situation for a very long time. The higher up you go, the income ladder, the higher the probability that people are not just thinking about my lifetime, but the next lifetime and maybe even the generation after that. And the real correlate between doing well is how far ahead you can look and take seriously. So my biggest concern with the millennial cohort is there doesn't seem to be a lot of long-term looking. Well, a lot of them think the world's going to end in 12 years. It ain't. And so they need to look beyond that in order to handle this wealth well and wisely.
Well, I think it's really important for parents to have conversations with their young people to help them to understand, hey, this is how this money was built. Here's the expectation and the family goal moving forward. But having one conversation with a millennial about money, that's called an introduction. You've got to sit down with them and help them to truly learn, to understand, to be prepared for this wealth transfer.
The positive side, the glass half full version of all this, is that we could be in pretty good shape. You have so many baby boomers leaving all of this money to not as many millennials. And the baby boom generation, theoretically, if set up right, could have really set up future generations for a lot of success in America. That's the positive side. I don't know if it comes to fruition or not.
That's a positive, and this also suggests they'll be able to have more success paying off their student loans, their credit card debt, et cetera.
Right.
Maybe getting a lot of this debt off their backs, which is enormous,
and it also
enormous amount right now.
Implies that they won't be as dependent on the entitlements that can't really survive under their present structures anyway. So I think you could start seeing a political impetus. They don't believe they're actually going to get Social Security. They're not as they won't be as dependent as a cohort. There will obviously be individuals who are, and that will allow a political conversation to happen that's not happening now.
The ultimate transition is it sets them up to go to space, which is what we're going to talk about now, because that apparently is going to cost a lot of money.
Using their credit cards.
Using their credit. Well, you would need to if you watched this last hour. The Virgin Galactic founder, Sir Richard Branson, was on telling us about his plans for private space travel. Let's take a listen.
It's taken a long time. I mean, we've been at it for 15 years. Jeff Bezos been at it 50 years. Elon's been at it for around about 15 years. So it's taken a long time. But now, now it's come good. We put 5 people into space in the last few months.
Say a decade from now, would regular people be able to do this, do you think?
They're going to need some. They're going to need some money. So I mean,
so not exactly.
I mean, if we can get it down to say $30,000 in 20 years' time, the market is gigantic.
Who's in? Droy, $30,000. It's $250 now. That's why we asked that question. For $30,000, you going to space?
I'll start saving now.
Would you be interested in going for real?
I think once they've debugged it and things actually go up and come down safely, I'd consider it. But I'm not sure I want to be the first person up there.
Chris is looking at you like
no,
you're crazy.
I'm not going. I struggle on a 5-hour flight to L.A., so I'm definitely not going.
Well, maybe
to
that
space.
hypersonic flight, you'd be better off. You'd be there in half an hour or whatever it is.
The reality is that when we had the Concorde long ago and far away, the average person couldn't afford that either. For the market that's taking private planes now and doesn't think twice about dropping $30,000 to have a private plane take them someplace a little bit faster than a commercial plane, this could be very attractive as a use of their time and the way they value their own money. But it is interesting. We've got 3 different space ventures, and they're not actually identical. I mean, this is sort of the equivalent what Branson is doing to submarines taking you on a tour, right? Versus what Elon Musk is doing, which is more like building a nuclear submarine.
Right.
So they're not analogous businesses, and both Bezos and Musk don't really need capital. It looks like Branson does, which is why you've got this taking it public and trying to gin up more interest.
What'd you make of that argument? I don't know if you saw the interview, but the argument on the to your point about the margins in the future being, once they get the costs, once they get everything built, that this is a very high margin business and maybe a very successful business if you have people lined up, and maybe not us, but you got a bunch of people lined up to pay $250 grand.
That is the wonderful thing about projections. You can say they are whatever you want to say in order to generate the interest in your stock.
Yeah.
I'm skeptical. Generally speaking, the businesses that do well are not the first businesses that try to do something. It's after the first businesses have tried and have failed that somebody comes along with a different way of doing the same thing, and that's when you start getting your margins.
I'll say that, in continuing with my theme, which is out of character to be glass half full here, it's pretty cool that people are thinking of ideas like this, you could say, though, that, that's still our goal.
It's an area with limited government regulation.
Well, that's also it. We don't have the government doing it.
For now.
Is that a good thing?
Oh, yeah. So great frontier for Yankee ingenuity, or maybe Anglo-Yankee ingenuity, if that's the right term. No, this is very exciting, and I think one thing also to consider is not just the 30,000, but you don't just, I'm assuming you don't just walk in a rocket and head up into space. You have to go through some training and be able to handle the G-forces and all that. So I think there'd be a significant investment of time here as well.
Let me end with a political point. We mentioned President Trump being out in Chicago, and last hour we talked about it through the prism of Joe Biden, but the president has raised a lot of money. He's had another fundraiser today, but has a large lead, Chris, over his 2020 rivals. Look at that in the third quarter, $125 million. Again, for all the issues that are out there, you have the economy, the stock market, and a huge money lead, as you would expect for an incumbent, I guess, but this is a big one.
It is a big lead, and it gives him an opportunity to really stay focused, if they will. Getting out there, not resting on laurels, but being proactive and being aggressive will allow him to extend this lead.
Will money be the decider? I mean, at the end of the day, the Democrats will come up with a lot of money to run against him, I would think, whoever their nominee is.
Well, it will help, but remember, Trump didn't need a lot of money to win last time, but it certainly won't hurt. And I would say that Trump's single greatest aid and assist to fundraising is the Democrats themselves, because a lot of this money is being driven by people who wouldn't otherwise have seen themselves as Trump supporter, but they're so worried about, the Green New Deal or Medicaid for all, Medicare for all, that this is the best execution that they can see.
Want to get one sentence in on that, or are you good?
The donors, 313,000 small donors. Those are 313,000 people who can go knock doors, hand out bumper stickers, and be activists, not just donors.
That's a good point when you collect all that data. Thanks to all three of you. Great panel here for the hour. We'll come back in just a moment.